Hey guys, this is Dave with Gazaudio. Today we're going to be taking a look at the Hiby R3 PRO Saber 2022. We'll go over what's included in the box first. We have the DAP. They also include a clear plastic case, a USB-A to C cable, and an extra screen protector. Okay, let's talk about the specifications, design, and then we'll talk about the user interface. This is the newer 2022 version of the R3 Pro, and you can pick it up on Hi-Fi Go for $209. Again, this version has been updated to the newer ES9219 Saber DAC. The 2020 version uses the ES9218P. The difference is basically the updated version of the DAC features Quad DAC Plus technology with HyperStream 3 DAC architecture. Another notable improvement comes from the amplification stage. They have increased the power output from 80 milliwatts to 101 milliwatts out of the 3.5 single-ended output, and from 280 milliwatts to 340 milliwatts out of the 2.5 balanced output. As for the maximum level output, 3.5 gives you 1.8 volts RMS, while the 2.5 gives you 3.3 volts RMS. And again, that is max level output, but that should be enough to drive most full-size headphones out of the 2.5. However, the 3.5 will probably struggle a little bit. Of course, it won't have any issues driving IEMs. So aside from those changes, everything else is basically the same. As for the rest of the specifications, it has a 1600 milliamp battery, and according to the website, should give you about 15 hours of playback time using the 2.5 output and 20 hours using the 3.5 output. However, I've been getting a little bit less than that. I think I'm getting around 13 hours using the 2.5 output. When it comes to wireless connections, the R3 Pro has basically everything you need, including dual band Wi-Fi, two-way Bluetooth 5.0, DLNA, and AirPlay support. As for audio decoding, the R3 Pro decodes up to 32-bit 384 kilohertz, native DSD 256, and MQA 16 times unfolding. As for Bluetooth, it can decode UAT. It also has two-way LDAC, aptX HD, aptX, AAC, and SBC. The design and build are good. There are 3 colors to choose from. I chose the black, but they also have gray and red available. And just for comparison, I have the R5 Gen 2 and RS2. As you can see, the R3 Pro is quite small. I've taken it out on several walks and have found it to be very pocketable and generally easy to carry. As for inputs, outputs, buttons, and knobs, on the top you have a 3.5 single-ended output and a 2.5 balanced output. On the bottom you have a micro SD slot and a Type-C USB connector. On the right side you have a power button and your playback controls. On the left side, a volume control. And before we jump into the sound, I quickly want to talk about the UI and usability. Now, when you power on the device, it takes you to your home page. From here, you can navigate to Hiby's main menu, which gives you access to all of your sound options and settings, including an equalizer and MSEB sound control. You can also navigate to your main playback menu, which gives you access to all of your onboard music files, or you can also access Tidal. And again, this does have MQA 16 times unfolding if MQA is your thing. You can also change the theme of the UI if you want to try out some different color schemes. For the price, I think they did a very good job with the UI, and for the most part, it does everything I need it to do, and it does it pretty well. It's not the snappiest, but again, it's adequate. Okay, let's talk about the sound. So I did test the EQ and MSEB settings and even created a few MSEB profiles for myself. However, as you know, I prefer to listen and test devices primarily in their default mode. So that's how I'm going to approach this review. I also need to point out that pairing is important, and your listening experience can be heavily impacted depending on the sound signature of your IEM or headphone. So again, with the EQ and MSEB options disabled, the overall sound signature is quite neutral and linear. So there isn't really any part of the frequency spectrum that stands out. Unlike the RS2, of course, the RS2 is a little on the warm side, but it's also an R2R DAP. And again, it uses that R2R architecture, and that's kind of what that R2R sound is known for. Now, the Hiby R5 Gen 2, like the R3 Pro, is also what I would consider linear for the most part. But even the R5 Gen 2 has just a hint of warmth. And when I'm doing a side-by-side with these three DAPs, the R3 Pro is the most linear of the three. So right here might be a good place to remind you again that with MSEB options, you can change that. You can add warmth, or you can even make the sound more cold if that's your preference. But again, with everything turned off, there is no coloration to the overall sound signature that I could hear. Now, unfortunately, sometimes that can cause the overall sound to be kind of clinical and also cause vocals and instruments to have an unnatural presentation. And again, I think I need to also reiterate the importance of pairing. Your listening experience heavily depends on the IEM or headphone you have it paired with. Pairing it with something that has a little more warmth can completely change your listening experience. Two of my favorite pairings were with the Sennheiser IE600s and also the Kinera Urds. However, I did also test it with my 2020 Andromedas, Zen Pros, SA6, SA6 Ultras, Moondrop variations, and several others. I also tested it with a couple of my full-size headphones. So just to break things down a little further, starting with the bass. The bass levels are neutral, so they're not elevated over the rest of the frequency spectrum in any way. So compared to other DAPs and some of my USB DACs, the bass can sound a little light and lacking in note weight. Bass extension is good, so there is no perceivable roll-off, and as for bass detail and texture, it's good, and I would say is actually, as far as overall bass quality, comparable to the Hiby R5 Gen 2. The mids, again, like the bass, are also linear, so instruments and vocals can sound a little less weighty and can actually have a tendency to have an overall clinical or lean presentation. However, mid-range detail retrieval is very good and for the most part resolving. The only thing I noticed is that, like the bass, the mids could at times sound a little unnatural. Now, moving into the treble, like the mids and bass, the treble presentation is basically linear. Treble detail is very good and has good extension all the way up into the air region. And that kind of segues us into technicalities, because one of the benefits of having a neutral, less warm sound signature is that it gives the upper mids and treble a little extra space, so to speak, and can contribute to a more open sound. So what that means is, and again, this all depends on the capabilities of your IEMs or headphones, but what that means is that you're going to have a wider sound stage and better perceived treble detail. Now, when it comes to imaging and instrument separation, I would say it's good also, and I would compare it to the Hiby R5 Gen 2. However, I would say the Hiby R5 Gen 2 has better instrument and vocal density. I just think that the R3 Pro doesn't have, again, that density, and it can occasionally sound as though instruments and vocals are kind of just floating around in the sound field. Again, but overall technical performance is actually good with the Hiby R3 Pro. So, like I do with all of the devices I review, I like to summarize and bottom line my overall experience. And I would say that my experience with the R3 Pro was generally very good. The $209 price that you pay for what is basically a fully functioning, very portable DAP is really good. The layout and UI are intuitive and for the most part user-friendly. The build quality is good, and if you're looking for something with a linear sound presentation but also gives you a ton of tweakability, then the R3 Pro is a great option. And again, just a reminder, pairing is important. Your overall listening experience is going to depend heavily on which IEM you pair the R3 Pro with. Now, would I recommend the R3 Pro? Absolutely. I think that, again, for the $209 price that you pay, you get a lot of tweakability, again, good sound, and just an overall solid package from Hiby. So that concludes my review of the Hiby R3 Pro 2022 Saber DAP. Thank you guys so much for taking the time to watch. If you're new to the channel and like our content, please take a second and hit that subscribe button. Please like this video, please share this video, and I hope you all have an awesome day.